looking at the three of us. Who's gonna have another kid next? Who's next?
BK.
I've got a couple of years.
Oh, sure. Who's next?
It's not gonna be me. I promise you that.
Are you guys doing another round?
See, you can't say I promise you that, sort of. Like there is only one person who can say I promise you that.
I was about to say, Ron, you got the snip, right?
I got the burn, is what I got. I got the cinched up guy playing Van Halen and burning me. And burning it and could smell it. Couldn't feel it. Could smell it. I don't know. I'm just telling you. Listen, I'll give myself an outside chance. We all know the great legend, and everyone remembers him as a Kansas City Royal, Johnny Damon, who had three other ones, had two twins, or had twins, excuse me, after he got a vasectomy. So anything's possible. He said he thought he had it made, was just going at it, and bam, two more came. So I guess that puppy didn't work the way he thought it would. But no, I'm good. We'll see. Not a race or anything, but we'll see here. Who's next? Who's going to join the multiple party?
I can tell you, it is going to be a couple of years for us. So I don't know what Serda's current
couple of years
outlook is, but we've got a little while left for us.
I know you're meticulous, but you look like you could slip. you look like you could have a moment.
I am going on a cruise in 3 weeks, so we'll see.
Serda definitely looks like a slipper. But all right, you know what? Go ahead, Steve. You slip. Look at.
I'm on top of it. I'm on top of all that. There's a reason I've made it this far without one.
Okay. Right. I'll just say, yep. Our final one, man, just fought through invincible odds to get here. I'll tell you that. We thought we had it locked up too on both ends, invincible odds, and pushed his way through. All right, listen. The Chiefs are basically having another bye week, so just like last week, even more so. It doesn't matter. I just want to see, are you ready to do this now? Brandon, Kiley, are you ready to do this now? Finally, as The Rock would say. Are you ready to end this silliness about Joe Thuney not being the left tackle in the divisional round of the playoffs? We watched DJ Humphrey, and I'm telling you, and I said this on the Daily Fix, shameless plug every day, 12 noon, right here, Foolish Club Media. But I said it. I was willing to be open-minded with BK. And when BK said, hey, the Denver game, how about we see it? We see a little Humphrey. We see a little Thuney. Let's see it. Okay. And they did it for 3 plays. And that's fine. Okay. And then DJ proceeded to just get his ass kicked up and down the field. Very similar to the way he was getting his ass kicked against the Los Angeles Chargers. And at that point, I'm like, all right, it's open-minded. We tried it. Look at it. Well, listen, Joe Thuney, this offense is click, click, click. It's too good. Joe Thuney is there. Are you willing and ready, and we can move on from this charade, and you're willing to go ahead and say, hey, they tried it. Got to be Joe Thuney and old Mike Caliendo.
I'm genuinely surprised this was your take. Like, actually surprised that this was your take coming off of that game.
Shut up, man. You're not serious.
I'm totally serious. I think it was even more like emphasized for me that Thuney is the clear answer at left tackle. Because here's the thing.
Okay. And Thuney is more.
Excuse me. Humphrey is your answer at left tackle with Thuney at left guard.
You said it right. You did it. You said it right. There you go. Moving on. Next thing that.
Here's the thing. Let's do some simple addition, okay? What would you say right now, scale of 1 to 10? What is DJ Humphries at left tackle for you?
From what we've seen from him, the 2 outings he's had,
I mean,
Below
and you know, your background of what you know DJ Humphries to
No,
be,
no.
what you project him to be, whatever it is, like however you want to put it on the scale.
Yeah.
What do you think right now, left tackle wise, DJ Humphries scale of 1 to 10? What would you have him at?
His pass for me is I think 1 to 10, 4.
All right. And what would you give
Maybe
Thuney
you
at
know what?
left
I
guard?
check that 3.
Okay. And what would you give Thuney at left guard? As a left guard, I would say Thuney is a 10. I think he is one of, if not the best left guard in the NFL.
I would have said a 9, but right, we're in the
Okay.
close range.
Now, what would you give Thuney at left tackle when he's playing out there? Scale of 1 to 10. What would you put him at?
From what he's shown us in the sample size, I'd say he has shown us to be a 7.
It's higher than I would have gone, but all right, I'll give it to you. And then when you have Caliendo out there at left guard, what would you have him as right now?
5.
So you have
He's been average.
Thuney as a 7 at left tackle, Caliendo a 5. That's a 12 on your left side. You have Humphrey as a 3 and Thuney as a 9. That's a 12 on the left side. So you have it as basically being equal between the two. I would have it as, I think Humphreys is more of like a 5 or a 6. I think Thuney is a 10. I think Caliendo is more like a 4. And I think Thuney at left tackle is more like a 6. So I have it 11 and like, let's call it 15. I think it is clear to me you are just a better left side of the line with Humphrey and Thuney. I think you're better in the running game when those guys are in there. I think you can run the offense a little differently because you give Humphreys a little less help over there. And it's not just chips or a double team or whatever it is. It's also what they're doing offensively. Like when Thuney was in there at left tackle, they were getting rid of the ball at all times, like almost every single play, 2.5 seconds or less. And it worked against the opponents that they faced at the end of the season. I don't think that is something that will work if you go up against the Ravens or the Bills in the postseason. So that's really what I'm determining this on is what is going to work when you have to beat the teams that you're going to face in the AFC Championship game or in the Super Bowl. And to me, your best chance to be able to do so, the talent that gives you the best chance to widen what you have available to you in the playbook, that's with Thuney at left guard and Humphreys at left tackle. So yeah, that's what I'm going with for the first round of their playoffs in the divisional round. I would start out with that, and if it looks like an abject failure, if it's a disaster, you can make the switch back to Caliendo at guard and Thuney at tackle. But that to me is a last case scenario.
Take a second here, Steve. Let me slide in here before you jump in, Steve. You're insane and out of your mind with this. First off, one, if we look at those two teams you're saying it worked against, I would presume that those two teams have better pass rushes than, and I would even say their secondaries are better than what Buffalo and what Baltimore put together. Maybe the secondary in Baltimore is better than what the Steelers can bring to, because I do know Joey Porter did not play in that game. But their pass rushes, Will Anderson, Danico Autry, Daniil Hunter, their pass rushers, Barnett, and then TJ Watt, Highsmith, their pass rushers are better to me. So the hell with them not being able to execute that game plan the same way they did there. I feel like they'd have more time going up against Kyle Van Noy and whoever the hell these teams are putting out, and Buffalo putting out there. So that's one part of it. Two, what is the most important? You don't have to answer, BK. I'll answer the questions that I'm asking. What is the most important, guard or tackle in this offense, what they're doing? To me, it is tackle. When you got a below average, wherever you want to call it, 4 or 5, damn it, he has not shown to be a 4 or a 5 in either one of those outings. Hell, it was you, and I'll bring it out in the text message when they played the Chargers that said he stunk. And you said he ain't been anywhere better than the last guys that were in before him. That's DJ Humphrey. That means you're talking about Wanye Kingsley. To hell with that. No, he has been below average since he's been there. And I'm sorry, he's coming off of injury. I don't think that he's all of a sudden going to be the guy that was with the Cardinals 2 or 3 years ago. And when you look at Joe Thuney has been well above average at the left tackle spot, and the offense has completely looked different when he was there. Then you go and put Nick Bonito just ran around DJ Humphrey, and I mean, good God, I'm sorry, Carson. They didn't give you a chance. I know that was a huge day for you. And Andy Heck just said, man, you got to take this one on the chin. But he just gets beat so quick, man. And I'm sorry. They have shown to be clearly at their best, clearly the better opportunity to do what they can do more in the playbook when Joe Thuney is at left tackle. And I'm sorry, yes, he is a hell of a left guard. And I would love to have him as a 9, or as you say, as a 10 at left guard. If there was somebody that was at least average, they're not getting average over there. You just can't. It was a complete difference when you see him. I don't believe that Pat's going to be comfortable dropping back with DJ Humphrey over there, allowing people to come off the edge the way he has been coming off the edge. They cannot do this. I don't know why you're just going to go down with the ship. I don't know why you're dug in like Dan Orlovsky was on Carson Wentz to begin with. I don't know. But this is crazy. There is nothing that we have seen that says, and I cannot believe you are on this. There is nothing that we have seen that says, yeah, man, DJ Humphrey. That's it. I'm sorry. Don't you dare, Steve.
That BK has a logical case. Like, I don't necessarily agree with
Thanks,
it.
Serda. Appreciate you.
But there is reason to what he's saying, and I don't even necessarily disagree with the thought process.
No. Don't you just roll that out and say it. Give me what the reason is. Don't you just roll it off and say it.
But
give me what the reason is.
But what it comes down to for me is, like, what are we gaining? What are we losing by doing DJ Humphries and having Joe Thuney at left guard versus Mike Caliendo at left guard and Thuney at left tackle? And it's like, well, would you rather feel a lot better about Patrick Mahomes' blindside from these edge rushers that he's going to face in the postseason? Or would you like to be able to run it down the opposing team's throats in crunch time when you need to close out a game with your running game? And for me, it is all about protecting Patrick Mahomes. It is all about the way that he played towards the end of the season with Joe Thuney at left tackle and how comfortable he looked with Joe Thuney at left tackle was a level of comfort that he had not shown with a single other left tackle that they have played this season. And so while you are certainly losing something with Mike Caliendo at left guard, I have to imagine you're going to get the best out of everybody moving forward because it's do or die now. And so you hope Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey can compensate in some way for that, or you can find an answer for that along the offensive line because Thuney's just bringing more to the left tackle table than anybody else is. And that's the only way I'm going to feel good about the Chiefs offensive line going into the playoffs. Going into the divisional round, Joe Thuney needs to be at left tackle for me.
So here's where I'm at.
I just want to throw out to your point, BK, before you get it. I just want to say, in those 2 games, they had 8 plays that were resulting of 17 yards or more. Yes, I went at 17 because it helps my argument better to start at 20. They had 8 plays of 17 or more in those 2 games against the Texans and the Steelers. They were able to get the ball down the field. Just want to say that. Go ahead.
So there's a few things here. One, the offense did look good in those 2 games. There's no denying it. They scored 27 and 29 points against 2 AFC playoff teams. There's really no way around this for me. And Mahomes looked comfortable. That being said, those are 2 teams that play a little differently than what I expect to see schematically out of the Ravens or the Bills, for example. Like you saw man-to-man teams in those 2 settings. Those teams that I just talked about, especially the Bills, heavily rely on zone coverage. And that means a lot of those plays take a little bit longer to be able to develop. And when you're taking a little bit longer, I think Thuney's a really good tackle at dying a slower death. Like, he doesn't lose really quickly at times the way that DJ Humphries is, which is valuable, especially if you're getting the ball out in under 2.5 seconds. Because if you can just make it to 2.7, man, we got the ball out of there, you're good. Here's the problem. If you get to 3, if you're holding it for a tick longer and you've got Thuney out there at left tackle, dude, game over. And I think you will start to see that the effectiveness of Thuney at left tackle is diminished against teams that make the quarterback hold on to the ball for a split second longer. And so now instead of saying, okay, Thuney is an upgrade over Humphries at left tackle, what we will start to say is, man, Thuney looks a little bit like Humphries at left tackle. And we have a massive downgrade for us at left guard. And now we're running out of answers because there is no running game to speak of with Kiley in there at left guard. I think that is really diminished with him in there. And I think also you see a worse version of Thuney in the running game when he's in there at tackle as opposed to being in there at guard on the interior. So, and then on the passing game, I just think it limits what you're able to do. It's more RPOs, it's more short stuff. I think this is a team that needs to put a true left tackle in there. And whether that's Wanye Morris, I don't think that's an option. Kingsley Suamataia, I don't think that's an option. Or DJ Humphries, who I do think is the option. I think to me, that is the way to go. And beyond that, Ron, I think it's the way the team is going to go. I think they did this in week 18 for a reason with DJ Humphries. I think they expect him to be their starting left tackle when they take the field in the divisional round, and then they can adjust accordingly. But I think their plan, I'd be pretty surprised if Humphries doesn't take the field for the first play as the starting left tackle.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah. We know Andy, dude. He leans on the veterans. This is the way that he typically operates.
Yeah,
it is nice. Joe. It is nice that you can always just go back to Thuney. Like I don't disagree with that. Like if it early in the divisional round, if this thing is just falling apart in the first quarter, you can be like, okay, we don't have time to mess around. Joe Thuney's got to slide.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, but you can't afford to just do that because that will send your ass home. Like you put yourself at risk of getting sent the hell home if you get started slow and you get behind like that. I know the Chiefs aren't afraid of getting down, but I mean you don't just I don't think mess around with stuff.
You're
like
right,
that.
But what I'm saying is I don't think I am messing around, and that's where we diverge. Like we go down these two different paths. Is I actually think that this is the route that they will go down and should go down, and I don't think it's a mistake. And what I'm saying is in this scenario, you also have another out in the scenario that you're presenting. If that does end up showing up where he just looks bad and DJ Humphries like clearly not the answer, I can then also in that scenario still go to Joe Thuney. What I think will happen, the likely outcome in my opinion, is that Humphries has a few plays where he looks bad. I think that's very likely. And I think for the vast majority of the game, he looks mediocre. I think he's a 5 or a 6 at left tackle. And if you can get that level of play, it's pretty much what you had last year with Donovan Smith.
No, I could get with that. But Steve, have you seen 5 or a 6? Have you seen average to above average from him in his what? 7 quarters, 6 quarters, however long he played? Have you seen that?
From DJ Humphries?
Yes.
No. But and that's what's scary is because
and what have you seen from Joe Thuney?
I've seen that I
well
feel a lot more
average.
Comfortable, and Patrick Mahomes feels a lot more comfortable. But like Humphries is a serviceable left tackle. I think it's just it might just be too much to overcome, man. Like coming back from the ACL tear and then the hamstring injury, like I think if he's 100% healthy, I'm on board, and I'm like, yeah, DJ Humphries, you got to go with the veteran guy who's proven he can play there and win at the NFL level. But him coming back from that injury, not really having the game time, immediately getting hurt when he gets the game time is what worries me. And then it just feels like it's a sunk cost for the Chiefs at this point, unless he turns it around and does look awesome in the playoffs or something.
I do think it's worth noting he played in front of Carson Wentz last week, and Carson Wentz is not a good guy to be able to gauge whether or not an offensive line is doing a good job. He holds onto the ball way too long. Even when something is there, he waits an extra beat to be able to find out if it's going to be there. And against that defensive line of the Denver Broncos with that quarterback in there and those guys that were next to him for the vast majority of the game, Humphries was put out there to fail. Like it was a losing proposition. So I understand, Ron, it didn't look good against the Broncos for the most part, but I also don't think that's necessarily a reflection on what it will look like when he's got Joe Thuney on one side, likely help coming from the other side, and Patrick Mahomes, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL at evading pressure behind him, instead of Carson Wentz, who's one of the worst. So I think that's an important caveat here as well.
I would like to also let it be noted that he gave up some pressures that Michael Vick would have gotten hit on immediately. All right, I would like to.
There were a couple of them that were genuinely bad, especially one
against
Bonita.
I'm just saying, man. Like I I think Mahomes dropbacks, one of the things that has been clear is he trusts much more what's happening over there on Joe Thuney, and he's not looking sideways or running away or being – he's not been doing that. He's going to be doing that with DJ Humphrey. He's going to be doing that out there with – I think – you know what? I'll move on, but I find it very interesting that you believe – like right now, you'd be willing to bet more consistently if we put – Joe Thuney and DJ Humphrey out there for 10 pass blocks, that you believe that DJ Humphrey is the one that has a better chance to hold off pressure longer.
It's not necessarily that. It's that I think they'd be pretty similar. And when I think that they'd be pretty similar, I want the all-pro guard to be at guard. Because it's not just that you're moving Thuney to left tackle. It's also that I don't get him at left guard. And I think you're getting a diminished version of Joe Thuney when he's at tackle. So if he's I think he's a 10 at guard. You think he's a 9, whatever. Like I think he's an all-pro left guard. And when I put him at tackle, I think he becomes an average football player. Like remember whenever we were growing up, Ron, you'd be playing Madden, right? And you could do the thing where you like switch a player a position and suddenly they like grow a little bit in terms of their overall rating. That's what I'm talking about with Thuney. I think when you put him at left guard, he's like a 95 overall rating on Madden. When you put him at left tackle, I think he's like a 75. And so I would just, if I'm going to have a 75 overall left tackle either way, I would rather have the dude that's a 95 at left guard and Joe Thuney, as opposed to having Kiley in there, who's also probably like a 70 overall grade at left guard.
I think that's just where I just don't. In any way have we seen anything that says that those two are even close? There's none that from the play we've watched that we've not seen anybody that's close. One of them went up against Highsmith, Watt, Will Anderson, Donnell Hunter, Myles Garrett. I just don't. And again, and I think another place where we disagree. I wish a team would run a zone and try to beat you in zone with Mahomes and now Hollywood and now Worthy and all of that speed now. This ain't Justin Watson. Like I would love to. Sure. I've got a feeling like that's the other thing is I most definitely believe that the Chiefs can take care of business running the type of offense they have been running the last whatever month it was, however long it's been. I think they most definitely can win the way they played against the Texans, the Browns, and the Steelers. I think that is the case. All right, let me pose this to you guys. Next week, divisional round. I don't know who it is they're playing. Some part in the game. Chiefs have a 45-yard field goal to kick. How confident are you that thing's going down?
Right now, today?
Right. Yeah, I'm saying we get in there, we get divisional round. There's a 45-yard field goal. Harrison Butker's trotting his ass out there to kick it. How confident are you right now that who I think has an argument of being the best big game kicker to have ever do it? I think he's potentially going to make the Hall of Fame. How confident are you feeling about that 45-yard field goal?
It's a lot closer to Ryan Suckup than what I typically feel about Harrison Butker.
There was no.
I don't know how
to drag Ryan Suckup.
Is Matthew Wright still on the team? Can we have him hanging around for in case of emergency?
I'm just
he
wondering.
Looks right now more like Lawrence Tynes than he looks like Harrison Butker. He looks like Cairo Santos more than Harrison Butker. Like all these Chiefs kickers of the past that you're like, could make it. I think he's probably going to make it, but I don't know. That's kind of how I feel right now about Harrison Butker. I'm leaking confidence. He has not looked right since his return. And it's not just the make-miss stuff. It's also just, it looks off. The whole thing, like he's going down to his knee now after all of his kicks. Like he just doesn't look right. And when that's the case, man, I don't know how you can possibly have full confidence that he's the guy that you've had in the past. And that's a big deal. Harrison Butker has been a difference maker. He's, in my opinion, going to be a future Hall of Famer because of what he's done for the Chiefs in the playoffs over their last few runs. And if he's not at 100%, it changes the way that Andy has to call these games. And so, like, early in the game, in the divisional round, I hope they have a big kick that he needs to make. I hope it's early, too. So that way we're not finding out the information that we need late in a game when it's potentially on the line. Like, get that kick out of the way early, and then we can adjust the game plan, adjust the decision-making processes for the game accordingly. But right now, scale of 1 to 10 to go back to that, I'm at like a 6.5 on my Butker confidence scale, and normally it's a 10. Where are you at, Serda?
I'll just say this real quick, Serda. I was happy when Carson Wentz got sacked because I knew that was going to move the kickback. Because, right, that to me was what it was to watch. And I'm like, all right, yes, 51. Okay, 51 in Denver. Here we go. This should be for Harrison Butker, the one we're used to. Like, I just want to see what he's got here. And I mean, that sucker never had a shot. I mean, from the time it touched his toe, never had a shot, Steve. Like I wanted him to get 6 field goals in that game. I wanted him to have to kick a bunch of field goals in that game. But I mean, the eye test is weird.
And I don't feel great about it. That they're obviously going to trot him out there. Like they're going to give him some opportunities. It's just, I think it's pretty clear that he's not healthy. And I mentioned this the other day on the Daily Fix. Like 2 years ago, he got hurt really early in the season and then was off basically just for half the year until down the stretch. He finally got healthy. And then in the playoffs was just absolutely lights out. And right now, it just seems like he's clearly not healthy because when he is healthy, he's one of the best kickers in NFL history. And right now, it just seems like that's not happening. But it's like they have all this extra time off that they're trying to get healthy. That maybe they're going to get other guys back as we look forward to the divisional round. And I'm just hoping that this extra time makes a difference for him because I don't feel super confident in him right now. And I'm not going to feel confident in him until I see him kick a field goal, but barring them seeing something in practice that makes them question whether or not he's even capable of making a field goal right now, he's going to be the kicker come the divisional round. So I just hope it's okay, but I'm not confident in it at all.
So he came back the game against Cleveland, and he absolutely scoffed a 29-yard field goal that had no chance. He made 3 extra points. The next week, he went 2 for 2, including a 44-yard field goal against Houston. Against Pittsburgh, he went 1 for 2, but he yanked a extra point, and then he missed that 1 field goal. So I like numbers-wise, I guess it hadn't been horrific, but eye test-wise, you're right. He doesn't. I think for me, he doesn't look confident from his finish, from everything. He doesn't look confident. And I mean, I guess the best way I can describe it is very similar to what you said was, yeah, man, yeah, I think he's going to make it. I think 40, 45, yeah, I think he's going to make it. Man, 56, I was like, he going to drill it.
Yeah, it used to be the Steph Curry, right? Like the Bryce Young touchdown pass that he threw last week where he just turned around. It's like, I don't even need to watch it. We're good.
I can hit the restroom, Jack. I go to the restroom. I'm good. Now I'm sitting watching intently on extra points. Not just like I'm not just walking away and taking that 32 for granted. Like I'm sitting on extra points hanging in there. Wait, watch that. Okay, because that's the thing is we understand and know. Listen, the Chiefs play tight games. They play tight games, and they needed Hall of Fame Harrison Butker in the last playoff run, as many field goals as he kicked and made in the postseason. And so hopefully they don't need it as much. But I don't know, man. It just isn't the same feeling that we've had from him. Hey, real quick, sometimes I need to get talked off the ledge, and I want to be talked off, and it's really not a ledge, I guess. I don't know why it shouldn't. I know Hall was on the sideline But still, there were still some guys out there playing, like Leo Chanel and Joshua Williams was playing, and 13 was playing, and Brian Cook was playing, and Charles Omenihu was playing, and there were some guys out there playing that are going to play and have roles on this team. I just didn't like the vibes of just getting beat down 38-0. I don't know. I just did not, and it should not matter. And I'm willing to listen on it, but they just got decapitated, and it was and it was hard for me, like whoever that 61 guy was. All right, but watching DJ Humphrey, somebody they were like, and hell, it's scaring me to death that PK thinks it's going to start out there just getting worked. And
Nick Bonito's really good. All right, it's a really good player.
Yeah. Okay. But he's out there getting worked, and I mean Leo Chanel. You asked about him playing the mic. Okay. It was like I just hated the way that was. Like it was an annoying. Just okay. I knew that. I didn't think they were going to win. But damn, just getting absolutely trucked like that just didn't have a good feel to end this sucker.
Had you heard of Cam Jones prior to last week?
Yeah, I heard of him. I thought it was Dorian O'Dowd.
O'Daniel.
Yeah, O'Daniel. When I saw 44 come out there, but clearly it wasn't. No, I hadn't heard of him.
I don't believe you. Second of all, that guy played 74 snaps. 74 snaps for the Kansas City Chiefs last week. Like, when that dude is playing 74 snaps, I know, and this is to the Jones family, I apologize. This is no disrespect to the young man Cam Jones. However, if he's playing 74 snaps for the Kansas City Chiefs defense, I know I don't need to take that game seriously. Dude, Steve Spagnuolo played like one coverage the entire game. On offense, they did nothing of interest. And I'm not talking about like doing stuff that was productive. I'm talking about the schematics of it all. I kind of feel bad for Carson Wentz because we talked about this last week when we were kind of previewing the show. Hey, this is a big game for Carson Wentz. He's trying to go out there and do for him what Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield have been able to do for themselves, where they get this second opportunity to go out there and have another career, basically post their hype. That did not go the way that Carson Wentz was hoping that it was going to. And I think part of that was they just didn't take the game seriously, man. Like they did not go out there and try to win a football game. They just went out there and said, we have to be here today. And so for the next 3 hours, you're taking it. Every single person, every Chiefs fan, especially Ron, would have been better off not watching a single second.
I wish I didn't.
You gained nothing by watching it. It told you nothing about who the Chiefs were. It told you nothing about who the Broncos were. It was a preseason game. And if you want to go back there and look at what the preseason standings are, we can. But that's what the game was on Sunday.
Yeah,
they just didn't even compete, fellas. Like there were other teams that just, and they didn't compete.
The Jets were 3-0 in the preseason.
Yeah, I get it, but there were still some guys out there that I know you talked about Cam Jones, but there were some other dudes that are going to play that played a lot of snaps, and it was just like the Rams. The Rams, for some reason, I don't know why, but they just set everybody down, and they at least competed. I do think there was something instructive from the game, and it was, this is a reminder of how important scheme is. Like, it's not just about your players. Players matter. Having talent is a really important thing. Guess what makes the Chiefs offense better? Having Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. Like, having talent really does matter in a big way. But what also matters is putting those players in the position to succeed. And on Sunday, the Chiefs did not do that. The Chiefs did not try at all to give themselves a schematic advantage. In fact, they put themselves at a decided disadvantage schematically. They knew it going into the game, and they were okay with it because they also know, hey, man, 2 weeks from now, there's at least a chance, even if it's small, there's a chance the Chiefs play against the Denver Broncos again. And so we're not showing you a damn thing. You will see nothing on film because we've already had to face you once, and that was a close game. We are not about to show you something that could potentially give you a little bit of a leg up when we play you 2 weeks from now. So they showed you nothing in that one.
And generally speaking, like the Broncos are a good team. The Broncos are a tough matchup for the Chiefs starters. Like at any point this season, like the Broncos are a tough matchup for this offensive line and this offense and a divisional opponent that knows you really well that you see every single season. Like they're just generally a bad matchup for the Chiefs. So no, I don't think there's anything to take away from that game. Like, yes, would have been nice to see them put up some points, I guess. But overall, yeah, it was a vanilla game plan. It was preseason game number 3, basically, from the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, they went into that thing saying, well, we're not going to help the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't even think that was a real conversation that happened.
Yeah, I don't think that happened.
But they went into this game saying, we're not going to play anybody meaningful, and that's going to mean that some guys that we do know are going to be thrust into roles that they don't normally play where they're less effective. And thus, they're going to look like they're struggling a little bit more. And there's other guys that just simply aren't talented enough to compete with the Denver Broncos starters. And Denver had to have it. Like, it was a must-win game for them. Like, there's nothing else to take from Week 18.
I'm not gonna sit here and be like some or any maybe a small group of, if the Chiefs don't get to where they want to get to, and say, hey, the way they threw that game and punted on that game in Week 18, that was a good sign. I'm not gonna say that. I don't know. There's just the lack of, because like I said, Brian Cook's a starter, right? Like Hicks is gonna play a ton if he's not a starter. Leo Chanel's gonna play a ton if he's not a starter. Charles Omenihu's gonna play a ton if he's not a starter. Mike Dan is gonna play a ton if he's not a starter. And they just got absolutely destroyed. Just destroyed. And I don't know. I just didn't like the vibe of it. I'm over it. It's a week through, and we'll see. You're right. I did. I just started flipping the channels. And hell, not even flipping the channel. Where I am in Houston, they just stepped away from the game.
And they should have. It was the right call. It was actually better for your health that they did it.
And they took it around, and then I went, started watching Tournament of Champions from the Food Network or something. I listen. The thing I did take away from the game is, you could say, not coverages. Like, I don't care how you put it, what you put it, coverages or not. Like number 13, man. It is. I'm not saying they can't pull it off. It is hard for me to watch 13-2 in the game at the same time. If there is, I know they haven't been able to avoid it, but if there is a way that this Jaylen Watson stuff is serious, because 13-2, like 13, he just gets beat so quickly, so easy, and that ain't got nothing to do with scheme. He's just getting beat. That, like, he's just tough to watch. I hope Jaylen Watson is really on the way.
It changes everything, man. Like, absolutely everything. If you look at any of the splits for the Chiefs this year, it's honestly kind of wild, because you would think Jaylen Watson is the single most important player in the NFL, non-quarterback in the NFL, based on what the Chiefs defense was when he was in there and what it's been since he's been out of there.
I mean, that feels a little strong, but
it's crazy. They were like the number 1 defense in the league, or at least a top 3 defense in the league when he was in there, pass coverage wise. And since he's been out, they've been, at times bottom 10 in the league as a pass coverage unit. So I don't think it's going to be that significant in the playoffs, because Spags will always put up something that's going to make opposing quarterbacks confused. But man, if he's able to play, even if it's like 50% of the snaps, and you just have him in there for 50% of the snaps, and on those snaps, it allows McDuffie to go back into the slot, because him and Joshua Williams, Watson and Williams, can be on the outside. Dude, that changes so much about the outlook for this team once you get into the postseason. And if he's able to do that in the divisional round, and then maybe you uptick it a little bit by the conference championship game, and then boom, you get him like as a full-time player by the time you get into the Super Bowl. I know this sounds absurd, Ron, and you might fight back on this. We can disagree for the 17th time today. But I think if you could have any one of the guys that got hurt preseason, or during the season or preseason, for the Kansas City Chiefs this year, if you could have had one of them back for this postseason run, I think I would have chosen Jaylen Watson because of what he means to this defense. And that's over a guy like Rashee Rice, who obviously matters for the offense, but what Watson does defensively, I think it totally changes the outlook for that unit.
Yeah. We've talked about it before. It's in Steve Spagnuolo's defense and like what he is asking these guys in the secondary to do and the way he wants to disguise coverages and move guys around and send blitzes. Like, it's really, really important that you have at least two corners that are really good at man coverage. And Jaylen Watson is really good at man coverage. And Jaylen Watson's just a hell of a football player. And so Joshua Williams is, obviously had his ups and downs, but Joshua Williams brings more to the table than Najee Johnson does. But having those guys who have gotten valuable reps over the course of the season, and then if Jaylen Watson is totally healthy and is playing at the level that he was prior to his injury, it's just a total game changer for the defense. Like BK mentioned, it's Trent McDuffie moving around the field again. It's Trent McDuffie being able to blitz in a way that like Jamari Connor was getting the Trent McDuffie blitzes, and Jamari Connor is like just not the same kind of player. Like Trent McDuffie, it allows him to be this versatile, game-changing playmaker for the defense. And it's something that they were missing midway through the season because they just didn't have the depth or the versatility in the secondary. Like it's a total game changer for the Chiefs defense.
Yeah. The Rashee Rice thing. I don't know. I may have to.
I figured you had an exit rate before then. Yeah.
That one might be the one. But no, man, he's like, they are clearly, they are functioning. I mean, they've given up 10, and they gave up they've been under 20 with all of these teams here of late, right? And that stretch of games, they have cleaned it up since the Carolina game. They have cleaned it up without Jaylen Watson, but clearly, I think the comfort level of being able to do more, and as Serda said, is what you can do with McDuffie. And like there's like the difference of how it feels is to say, all right, McDuffie, you're going to play in the slot, and we're going to have Joshua Williams and Johnson on the edge. Whew. It feels much different than if you got Watson on the edge and one of them. Like that feels completely different if that is the case of things. So yeah, it is. They said there was an outside chance he could get back for the playoffs, and I think this is huge if they can get him back. He has been much bigger of a loss and an issue than we thought, and they've had to kind of change some things up and adjust how they do things, and they still find a way to get themselves beat. Like I said, one of the most frustrating things and the thing that really concerns me the most on defense is the ability and the ease of teams to pick up 8 to 15 yards on this defense. Like the ease in which they do it. It could be 2nd and 12. It could be 3rd and 13. Like that is something that hasn't changed as much, because right now it is a deal of, if you block the Chiefs, if you block them and your quarterback has time and you don't have to deal with 22, I mean, you're probably going to have something. And that was what the issue was when they had that little weird slide in the middle of the season. Is teams blocked them, and you could just get – I just remember the Buffalo game. Nick Bolton gets a 2-yard loss on Cook on a run. 2nd down and 12. Mac Hollins catches a pass 10 yards away, and Najee Johnson is 10 yards back, and he gets another 5 to 7 yards. It's 2nd and 12. Yeah. I remember a Raider game, Joshua Williams. It was like a 2nd down and 20, and they just picked up 22 yards. Just like, what the hell? Like,
and those are the situations. Those are the exact situations where I think that you'll see them put McDuffie into the slot. Like, I think they'll probably be a little judicious about the way that they end up using Jaylen Watson early on in the postseason. I think you'll see him out there in clear and obvious passing situations. And then as the postseason continues, as long as the Chiefs are still alive, and I expect them to be, I think you'll see him in there more and more often. But early on, it'll probably be a situation where he's just in there like, hey, obvious passing down. Let's make sure McDuffie is at the place where he's at his best, and it allows us to use him in the most possible ways, including as a blitzer, and then we can really kind of get stuff going from there.
Well, look, we know who is going to be pulling the trigger on what Jaylen Watson is going to be doing, and that is Steve Spagnuolo. But the weird thing is he's in the news, and Steve Spagnuolo, who it feels like it's just been a, hey, give it up. He's just not going to be on the radar as a head coach since the fail with the Rams. And I mean, he was at the Rams and they were in St. Louis. The fail of the Rams and his age felt like it just didn't happen. Well, he's now has interviews requested by the Jets, interviews requested by the Raiders, and now the Jags. Your feelings, because I got some, but your feelings on Spags getting interviews.
So, first of all, the Jets have interviewed everybody. Like, soon they're going to interview Ron and maybe Serda as well. Like, they have interviewed seemingly every possible head coaching candidate that's out there. So that's part of it. Two, if you're listening to this, we're recording Thursday night. You're listening to this on Friday. By the end of the day today, Steve Spagnuolo will have interviewed with the Jaguars, the Raiders, and the Jets all in one day. I think he's a legit candidate this offseason. Now, I don't think he's going to get any of those jobs. I think that the Jaguars are pretty much all in at this point for Ben Johnson. We'll see where he ends up going, but I think they would really like to make that happen. I don't know what the Raiders are doing, and I think the Jets are going to do something weird. Like they're just, we all know how the Jets operate. Spags should be interviewed for head coaching jobs, if for no other reason than, man, the well has run dry. Who are the obvious coaching candidates this offseason? It's Mike Vrabel, and we all seem to believe that he's going to New England, right? It's Ben Johnson. He's the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. People seem to really like Aaron Glenn. He had an unbelievable game plan for him last week for the Detroit Lions. I'm a little skeptical, but we'll see. I think he's probably going to get the New Orleans job, though. So other than that, there's not a lot of like can't miss prospects out there. And if you're one of these teams that's looking for, okay, where do we turn if there aren't any obvious candidates? Steve Spagnuolo is a pretty damn good place to start. He's an unbelievable mind when it comes to what he's going to do defensively for you. He can stabilize things. He can handle the media. We've seen that at the very least in Kansas City. So I think he's worthy of a shot. I'm glad he's getting these opportunities. I've talked to him before about this, and I know he really wants to get another opportunity as a head coach of the NFL, even if it is late on. I think he would take any job that he gets. I think there are some people that are saying like, hey, he's going to hold out for a good job. No, man, I think if he gets offered one of these, he will take it. I just am skeptical that he will take it. But Ron, on the off chance that he does, if somebody offers him the job and he takes it, it changes a lot about the outlook for this team because we have no idea what would be the internal or external solution to what they have at defensive coordinator. And we've seen how this can go in the past. Andy Reid, when he was with the Eagles, elevated his offensive line coach to be their next defensive coordinator. That happened.
Well, I did that one time.
Yeah, that happened.
That's an
in Kansas City. In Kansas City, he had Bob Sutton as a defensive coordinator for a number of years, and he did not get rid of him until he absolutely had to. So it is a little concerning if Spags does decide to leave, but I'm of the opinion that I don't think he's going to.
He also had Jim Johnson. He also had Sean McDermott. I mean, he's been all
and
right.
Fired McDermott.
He's been all right. Well, somebody ought to. He's been all right. Hey, Steve, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. It scares the hell out of me. Because listen, and not that. Listen, we've heard Spags. Spags has been open and said he wants to be a head coach. That has been something that he has talked about. But what scares me is, for me, it's one of the obviously Mahomes, Reed, Kelsey, Jones, obviously all of that. But one of the real secrets is the Chiefs play callers, the guys who design the offense and defense and special teams, all of them at some point, and I'll be honest with you, all of them probably, and that's Andy, Spags, and Dave. I think all of them, they'd probably be better head coaches than maybe 10 or 12 coaches in the league. And they were never going anywhere. Like that's a secret sauce. They never, ever were going anywhere. And they were always going to be kept together. And Spags, to me, is the best big game coordinator in all of the sport. And hell, he may be just the best defensive coordinator all the sport. But you need a game. You need a playoff run. He is the person. And he's never leaving. That was the whole thing. He's never leaving. Dave, Tobe, never leaving. Andy's the head coach. Right? You could run Eric. You could run. Hell, you even got a point where nobody would hire Eric. Like you gotta. He's never leaving. And that was like the crazy thing. You see the Eagles, they go to the Super Bowl, they lose both their coordinators. They take a dive, right? We're looking at Detroit. They're going to probably lose both their coordinators and see what happens to them. The Chiefs, and both of those teams, those are they're not just coordinators, but play callers on both sides. Like you look at that, the Chiefs just aren't losing these guys. And that's kind of been a secret sauce there. And to the point you're making, I know Serda said there's an obvious candidate in-house. And there are some guys there, but they ain't Steve. They are not Spags. And that's just it. That's been one of the hidden secrets of why they've been the best coaching staff is they've got three guys that arguably are the best at their spots, and they will never, ever be poached. It's just crazy.
We've talked about it year after year, and the fact that Spags didn't get real head coaching opportunities last year is insane. Like, I think Ben Johnson's the hottest name this offseason, and like if I were teams, I would give the Bucs offensive coordinator Liam Cohen a serious look. But like other than that, BK is right. Like, there's nobody that should be like definitively like this guy is like the next big thing. Like Ben Johnson looks like he is that. Like he looks like he is the real deal, and he looks like he's an incredible offensive mind. But Spags has deserved this for a while. I don't want him to leave. I want him to stay the Chiefs defensive coordinator forever. But it's unbelievable that these teams have allowed this to go on for as long as it has with the
secret
Chiefs.
sauce.
And it's just because they're old, I guess. Like, they're just not young, up-and-coming coaches. But then there's still, like, you know, Mike McCarthy and Dan Quinn's and, like, these kinds of guys that get opportunities. But for whatever reason, nobody wanted to mess with the Chiefs coaching staff for years and years. And so it's inevitably going to happen. And I don't want Spags to leave. But if he does get a head coaching opportunity, he obviously wants to do that. He's talked about it multiple times now. And I do think that Dave Merritt would probably be the defensive coordinator in waiting for the Chiefs. Dave Merritt is, I think, an incredible coach who is really, really well respected within the Chiefs organization. He got some defensive coordinator looks last year and is really probably at this point in his career long overdue for that type of opportunity. But he has also spoken with the media multiple times and talked about how important it was for him to stay here local in Kansas City for his kids to graduate high school so he could see them go to college and everything and be here for all of that. So some of that's probably on Dave Merritt. So it would be super easy if Spags did leave for Dave Merritt to just transition, and Dave Merritt's never been a defensive coordinator. So I don't know how that's going to turn out, but I know that he is an amazing secondary coach, defensive backs coach, and is really, really well respected in the organization. But yes, Steve Spagnuolo is a Hall of Famer. Like, I don't know if you can replace that, but I do think that Dave Merritt is a really good option that's already in-house for the Chiefs.
The other question you have to ask, though, does he stay in Kansas City or does he go to be the defensive coordinator with Steve Spagnuolo?
Yes.
You know, like that's part of this is it's not just Spags that potentially leaves. It's also part of your defensive staff. Like whether it be Merritt or Joe Cohen, who has been a really good defensive line coach for the Kansas City Chiefs over the last couple of seasons. He could end up taking a coach or two with him, which just changes the outlook for how you view this Chiefs defense.
And now I wouldn't worry about if given the chance to be Spags' coordinator or or Andy's with Chris Jones, and you're calling it, yeah, he wouldn't leave that. He would stay in Kansas City. I mean, like I would imagine.
I don't know, man. He's been with Spags since 2004. Like they've worked together for a really long time. His loyalty is to Spags, not to Andy. So I don't know. I don't know.
His loyalty would change. He would be the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, who have McDuffie and Chris Jones and whoever else they have, Karlaftis up there, and there is no Steve Spagnuolo. That's the best defensive coordinator in the game. That's who's really running the show there.
Sure.
It is a clear deal of, no, man, he's running the show over there. We know Andy's D coordinators are running the show. So, and plus you would think, all right, let's look at it. He's going to the Jets, Jags, or Raiders right now. Like, let me hold this defense that I know.
Do you guys think he gets a job?
No.
I don't either.
No, I think teams are too obsessed with young coaches now.
I think they're stupid. I think
they look at his past track record as a head coach, and it winds up weighing too much against him, even though that's stupid.
I think Ben Johnson ends up going to the Jaguars. I think
you don't think he goes to the Bears?
I don't think they're going to pay him as much as the Jaguars do, and I think that the Jaguars will eventually fire their GM to hire Ben Johnson. I think the Raiders end up going with Flores because of the Brady connection there. And I don't know what the Jets are ultimately going to do, but I do not think that it's going to be Steve Spagnuolo. So that's where I'm at with those jobs, because those are the ones that he's interviewing for.
Yeah, man. Like you said, I think we all agree it would change a ton, and it changed the confidence level. And it's crazy. I don't know why a team wouldn't just do it. Like I like an AFC, anybody, I would just do it to sacrifice it.
It'd be great. It'd be smart for the Raiders. Like, hey, we don't have to worry about it anymore. We don't have to go up against Spags defense.
Let's get a couple of them coaches.
It's the biggest advantage Andy Reid has had, because even Bill Belichick had young coaches on his staff that would get poached. Andy's just got a bunch of older guys, and nobody in the NFL wants them.
It's what Belichick had after Josh McDaniels failed so spectacularly in the NFL as a head coach. Like, once he failed, you knew Josh wasn't probably going to get another opportunity as a head coach, and so it was just, okay, you're the full-time offensive coordinator with the Patriots. But before then, he was always cycling through those guys.
So, except Josh got 3 opportunities somehow. even after he told Indy, "Yeah, I'll be there." Never mind. He still got another opportunity after that. Yeah, no, we saw him. Like, yeah, it's one thing if Matt Patricia goes, okay, Bill's got it. But it is when Charlie Weiss left, then they had to keep recycling. Andy hasn't had to go anywhere else after Bob Sutton. And it's crazy. And he's been the best. All right. Real quick, who are the Chiefs playing? Who are we talking about next week against the Chiefs?
I think they're playing the Chargers. I think Chargers beat your Texans, and I think the Ravens and Bills are playing in the other side of the bracket to see who gets to come to Arrowhead.
Yeah.
You got one more time to call them my Texans. I don't do that to you. I don't call them your St. Louis Cardinals.
All right. I think so too. I think the Texans are just like the most like limping into the playoffs team I've ever seen.
I feel like everybody's saying it though.
Have you caught the Pittsburgh Steelers? That they didn't.
Yeah, but the Steelers at least like have the talent. The Texans, I don't have any confidence outside of like it's not even Nico's like not playing well right now for the Texans.
My thing with the Steelers is just they seem to show up well in this specific matchup against the Ravens. If they were playing anybody else, I would be saying the exact same thing about the Steelers that I'm saying about the Texans right now.
Except for the last time they played them, but which was a couple weeks
that was
ago.
Close game until the last like 20 minutes of the game, but whatever.
20 minutes of the game. Yeah.
Regardless.
Hey,
just leave me be. Let me live. I think that the Chargers win. I think the Ravens win. I think the Bills win. I think the AFC bracket is pretty simple. I think it's Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens, and then everybody else. The NFC, dude, I have no idea. You could pick any of the 7. I'd be like, yeah, I get it.
I think the Texans are going to beat the Chargers. I think a lot of kind of what you said there as well. Hey, man, we got people like Rex Ryan talking about they got a bye week, like the Chargers or something. Like the Chargers have been just world beaters. right? I think the Texans, like when you talk about, no talent, Serda, I'm just like, you can't say that on the defensive side of the ball. And that's where I think a lot of it, like we've seen the Chargers get stuff.
Offensive line's good though.
Okay, go look up at them sacks. When you start to think about the Chargers offensive line and how much
hurt,
how much he holds the ball. Like, I mean, go look up there. They gave up 5 sacks to the Falcons, and they don't sack anybody, right? So that's just my thing is I don't. And then they've struggled big time with big body receivers. I think Nico Collins has a chance in this game. It comes down to me. These are two of the best edge rushing teams, but I do think the Texans win. I will not lie. I could see the Broncos making this thing real interesting. And that matchup, and I'll be honest, I said on Daily Fix, I don't want to see that. I want to see Josh Allen and Lamar. I don't know. I want to watch that game, but I will not be surprised if we are sitting here in the fourth quarter in Orchard Park and that the Bills haven't just gotten away from them.
Out of curiosity, who do you guys like in the NFC side of things this weekend?
I like the Eagles. I like Tampa, and I like the Vikings. I think the Vikings stuff. It's just. Well, I mean, they talked about them cats, boy, like they ain't played us. That one game they played.
Yeah.
I literally listened to a commentator say, Sam Darnold, boy, he played 13 games where his rating was over 100. He said, but them other 4, that's what, 13 of the 4?
Yeah.
I said 13?
And it was a bad game against one of the best teams in football. Like it wasn't like the Detroit Lions.
And it wasn't like
football team.
And it wasn't like they didn't have the opportunities. Like they were open. They just missed them.
I liked the Rams all week until, and this is not to make light of the situation. What's happening right now in LA is absolutely horrific. I don't know how these teams from LA are going to be able to focus on these games, dude. It is something that is really holding me back. Like I had a lot more confidence on my Chargers pick prior to this week, and now I'm starting to wane with that. Like the same thing is true for my Rams pick. I like them against the Vikings. I think they should win that game. I have no idea, no clue how you could possibly expect somebody to go into that with just being human and not be thinking, have your head going elsewhere with what's happening out there. But that one I think is a legit toss-up. I've got the Commanders beating the Bucks. I think the Commanders might end up in the NFC Championship game this year, and I've got the Eagles beating the Packers. But the NFC side of things is a total crapshoot, dude. All of these teams are incredibly flawed.
Yeah. All right. I think I'm with Ron. I'm going to go Vikings over Rams because I just think the Vikings are just a talented team. Like they had one bad game. And then, I'm going to take the Eagles, and then I'm going with the Bucks too. I just like the Bucks offense, and I think it's going to give the Commanders some problems.
Crazy. Sam Darnold can't play well in big games, except for that week prior to it. He played pretty big in the game against the Packers. It's just crazy. We get with Sam. We are out.